everybody, I'm Natalia Bonner, back with something fun to share with you today. So today I'm actually going to be sharing the background filler that I have quilted here on this beautiful quilt. So what is this quilt and why am I sharing it with you? So this quilt right here is actually one that I get to keep. Most of the quilts that I share with you guys are, besides the block a day, all those, a lot of the actual quilts that I share with you are client quilts. So I do still quilt for clients. I love quilting for clients. But the only downfall is I don't end up with a lot of my own quilts that have custom quilting on them. So I get to keep this one and I'm really excited about it. But besides that, this is actually the class sample for my new online classes, Let's Stitch Quilt Blocks and Let's Stitch Flying Geese. So across my whole entire quilt, this is actually a printed panel that I designed with honest fabric and had them print, and then I quilted all my designs on it. So in all of the background on this whole entire quilt, I chose to quilt out this, I call it like a swirly feather background filler. It's a really fun filler. It stitches out pretty quickly. It's very forgiving. So I thought I would share just a little bit of that background filler quilting with you today and hopefully inspire each of you on your own machine quilting journey. A few of the things that I am using, like I mentioned, this is on the panel sample for my online classes. You can check those out on my website, peaceandquilt.com. Besides that, the batting that I'm using here is one layer of the Quilter's Dream Poly Deluxe. The thread that I'm using here on the top, I'm using So Fine, and on my bottom, I'm using Bottom Line. You can pick up all these products over on our website, peaceandquilt.com. I will be doing all of my stitching on a Gamel 22-inch machine using the stitch regulated mode. Let's get stitching. To stitch out this swirly feather background filler, I always start out by stitching a swirl. So with my swirls, when I stitch the swirl, I always circle into the center, thinking about leaving an out, a place for me to get out of where I started. After I've swirled into the center, then I'll swirl back out. Then from there, I'm going to start adding some feathers around the outside of that swirl. Now, when I stitch out these feathers, I like to add 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5, 6, or 7 feathers around the outside. Just a few to make me feel like it looks nice and fills in the space evenly. Generally, I don't go all the way around the design. Once I've stitched those feathers around, I do like to go back and add an echo stitch around the outside of that feather. I personally think that the echo makes it look like it ties together really nicely and just finishes it off. Now, when you do stitch out a design like this, you do always have to be kind of thinking ahead and looking ahead and thinking about leaving yourself a place to get out, where you're going to stitch your next swirl, and adding those feathers. So sometimes when I stitch my feathers, I'm only adding 1 or 2 to the outside of my swirl, and sometimes I'm adding several. The other thing to notice that when I'm stitching out these swirly feathers, I am always trying to alternate directions. I don't want my swirls and feathers to all look as if they're just going one direction. When I do that, it ends up like my whole quilt kind of looks like it's maybe tipping over or falling, something funny like that. Now, if you are just new to this video or to joining my channel, I am stitching out here on a custom pre-printed or printed on demand panel. This is the panel that I'm using to stitch out my quilt blocks for my block a day stitch along. So if you're wondering why my quilt is basted out the way it is, not completely to the edge, there's a little bit of a seam or a hem out there on the outside of it, that's because it's the panel that I'm stitching on. Generally, obviously, I would do regular basting around the outside of a quilt. But with this, I'm definitely going to trim those edges off when I'm ready to bind this quilt. Now, I'll just give you a little bit of time and let you sit and watch a little bit of this quilting on this fun swirly feather background filler. I do go more into detail with this design in my book, Next Steps in Machine Quilting. You can pick that up along with the products that I'm using here over on our website, peaceandquilt.com. And like I said, if you are interested in my stitch along, make sure you do check that out. Got 365 days of quilting quilt block designs using machine quilting rulers. I hope you all find a little bit of inspiration from this fun video today.